What's up, guys? It's Everett with Bro TV, and I know we've been hopping around from a lot of different types of videos that we've been doing, and kind of neglected our video game countdown that we had started weeks ago. So we're just gonna get right to it and hit the next step, which is 25 to 20 in Bro TV's top 50 video games of all time. This one's got a lot of classics, older games that, you know, if you're not around our age, you know, in your 20s, you probably haven't played. A lot of them for the N64 and stuff. But super good games. For starters, coming in at number 25, we have Force Gemini. Force Gemini was made by Rareware back when they were owned by Nintendo. And, you know, when they were making games for the Nintendo 64, it was like a golden age of video games. They made so many good games that people from, you know, the 90s when they played video games, they just loved. They had just classics, Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64, Diddy Kong Racing, just so many good games. And Force Gemini is a perfect example of one of these really good games. It was a third-person sci-fi shooter that came out in like '99, and it was just a really big action-packed game. It was very aggressive and a lot of fun. And even though when it first came out, the reviews for it weren't all that great, just because that Rare, when they made this game, they really went big, or you know, they was go big or go home. And the game itself was just massive. It was just probably would have taken you like 30 hours to play, which, you know, thinking about it, especially for back then where they had such limited content, for the like limited hardware to produce this content, is pretty big. This game's now first-person shooters that, you know, you could beat in 2 days tops, if even that. And Force Gemini wasn't just long; it was very difficult. It was a challenging game, and it frustrated a lot of people that played it. But if you can beat it through these challenging parts, it was just so worth it. There was like 15 worlds, and they were massive. They were very large levels, and they were broken down into sub-levels, so you didn't have to take on these huge chunks at a time and not be able to save. And there was well over a dozen weapons, and there was a good multiplayer. You could do a 2-player co-op, 4-player co-op, and it was just a very aggressive, very high-paced game, and it was a lot of fun. And, you know, it's just something you don't really see a lot of third-person shooters these days that are, you know, in the style of Force Gemini, versus like gameplay being, you know, as high paced, and it has, you know, as large as it is. It's just, you know, Rare back then, they were really in their prime. They made games that just really can't be matched, and it sucks that they got sold to Microsoft, because, you know, their quality just plummeted from that. All right, moving on. We got another Nintendo 64 classic, Army Men's Sarges Heroes. It's another third-person shooter. Got a lot of shooters going on for this portion of the list. And I remember playing this all the time with my sisters. It was such a good time. And you know, we used to go back to, you know, out to Blockbuster and rent it all the time. And it was such a really fun game. And it was, you know, they took a lot of risks with the design, just because they used the little army man, and it was just kind of goofy looking. And by appearance, you wouldn't expect it to be as good of a game as it is. But it's such a really good game, and there were so many weapons, and the levels were really well designed, and it was just a lot of fun. And the storyline is really interesting. You've got the Tan Army. He's the leader is this General Plasto, and they somehow, you know, connect the portal between, you know, connect the worlds of the army men to our world, and they can bring back stuff from our world, and they use it as weapons, like magnifying glasses and stuff that, you know, ruins toys. And when you're playing the game, the storyline it was surprisingly deep, although it was a, you know, very satirical look on, you know, warfare as a whole. And the game itself, some of the dialogue in it is just blatantly racist, but because of the context that it's in regarding toys and stuff, they were able to get it by. But, you know, if you have an emulator or something for your computer, it's definitely worth taking a look, because it's like, maybe some stuff you didn't notice as a kid, but looking at it now, it's just like, what the fuck? How did they make this game? But anyways, it was a lot of fun. It was a really goofy game, and the multiplayer on it was just really fantastic. The maps were really big, and it was really just fun where you grab 3 buddies and all 4 of you just go at it, and it was a lot of fun. And back then it was for the limits that they had, they made a really good game. All right, next we have Starcraft. Starcraft 2 came out, a few years ago, and before that, the original Starcraft was more than 10 years prior to that. And Blizzard is really known for their RTSs. Between Warcraft and Starcraft, they're renowned, and they do these things really well. And Starcraft was popular for a very long time. I mean, people were still playing the original one when the second one came out while they were waiting for it. And Starcraft 2 is just immensely popular. It's one of the biggest franchises in South Korea, and they have all kinds of tournaments when people play it. And it's a really big deal over there. And Starcraft is just it's a masterpiece of real-time strategy. It's just the process of setting up your bases and building your armies. There's not gimmick or anything like that. And even though every faction that you can play has their own traits, it's never to a point where any side is really better than the other. They're all good and bad in their own ways. But personally, for me, when I play RTSs, I'm the kind of guy that likes to build up a giant fucking army and then wipe everybody out. I hermit myself until I've got an unstoppable force, and then I go out. So I like to use the Zergs and Zerg rush everybody, because they're great, because you can produce. They produce their units faster than anybody else, but they're a lot weaker. So if you do that and you just build and build and build and build and build and build and build, you can take everybody by force just from massive numbers. And again, Starcraft it's a lot of fun, and RTSs, they're slower pace as far as action goes, and they require thinking and strategy and all that stuff. But honestly, it's one of my favorite game types, and I've always been really good at them. So there's that. Coming in next, we have one of my favorite shooters from the original Xbox. It was the Star Wars Republic Commando. I've never really been a big fan of squad-based shooters, because I always feel like your squad just kind of, especially on the older games like Brothers in Arms, Road to Hill 30 and stuff like that, the squad kind of just gets in your fucking way. You have to just halt what you're doing to move them around, and they're not very capable of doing things on their own, and you just wind up babysitting this team of people that can't shoot for shit and just wind up dying. And Republic Commando was definitely not like that. The game is very challenging. It's a difficult game, and it really makes you appreciate that you have the squad with you, because the AI that controls them is just very good. In the story, you play a group of special operative clone troopers from the Clone Wars. It's in the original 3 Star Wars movies, and you go out and you do all kinds of missions and stuff like that, and it's just a really good game, and you get to see a side of Star Wars that the movies didn't show, and it's just a very interesting look at like the clone troopers and stuff, because they never really got into too much detail about what they did, because you're always focusing on the Jedi in the movies. So Republic Commando is just an excellent first-person shooter. The weapons dynamic was really good. They had so many options as far as weapons and tech and gear and stuff, and it was just an all-around fun, balanced game. The multiplayer was good, and it really goes up there. It sucks that they never made a sequel. I really think that it would sell really well, but hey, sometimes you just get those one-hit wonders and they never come back. And for the last one for today, we've got one of my favorite games. It's actually the only recent one on this list right now, and that's Titanfall. God, do I fucking love Titanfall. It's such a good game. You've got such a well balance of everything that you can do in the game, and let me step back real quick. Titanfall was immensely popular for when it came out, but unfortunately, it kind of got snubbed out by the Advanced Warfare and stuff that came out after it. Call of Duty and Battlefield and stuff, which is too bad, because Titanfall was a really good game. The only downside is it's one of those always online games. They when they were making this game, they put so much time and effort into the gameplay that they kind of ignored everything else, which isn't too bad of an issue because the gameplay is done so well. But the downside is, while they were doing that, the storyline, which, you know, I don't mind a story that's kind of lacks a little bit if the gameplay is really well, but as far as Titanfall goes, the storyline was almost completely ignored. You go online and you have to play the game with other people. You can't do the campaign by yourself. You have to play against each other. So really, as far as the story goes, you just know there's two factions that are at war. Because it's online, the cutscenes don't really happen. They try to explain the story as you're playing. And when I was playing this game, I'd ask me, like, does anybody even know what the fuck's going on with the story? No. And nobody did. There was no way to get engaged in the story. All you had was, we got robots, they got robots, just fuck them up. I mean, good enough for me, because it was a really, really fun game. But the downside is there was no private matchmaking. You couldn't get 12 of your buddies, go into a private lobby, pick a game type and a map, and just go at it. The best you could do was get 6 players on a team, and even then, that would just be your team. You couldn't choose who you're going to play against. You couldn't choose the map type or anything like that. It was still completely random. So, they came out with an update for that, but, you know, the fact that it wasn't there when they released it, you know, was kind of a bummer. And Titanfall kind of faced the same problem that a game for the Xbox faced a while back, a game called Black, which was a first-person shooter, and it got like 9 out of 10 across the board because it was such a well-made game, but it didn't have any multiplayer, and that was, you know, because of that, the game fell short pretty quickly. It was, you know, it was like busting a nut. It was just outstanding, and then once it was done, you know. You had no reason to go and play it again because there wasn't any multiplayer. Titanfall is on the other side of the coin. There's no story mode. It's hard to get engaged. But the gameplay just, it's so much fun. And they really did such a good job of getting away, you know, taking care of the problem that a lot of first-person shooters have. And that's the, like, camping and all that bullshit. Because they would have a point system. You know, if you killed an enemy player, you got X amount of points. If you killed an enemy mech, you got even more points. But at the same time, they had all these little AI guys that gave you very little points, but they were easy kills. And the mechanics for getting around the map, you could scale walls, climb on roofs, hit little jetpacks. It made it a much faster paced game, and it made camping, you know, hard to do. So it made the game just that much more fun and that much more rewarding when you would do stuff. And even though the mechs were such a big part of the game, they don't take away from playing as a regular foot soldier. It's very, very thrilling to play as a mech and fight other mechs, just going, you know, head to head. But it's even more of an adrenaline rush when you're a foot soldier and you're trying to take a mech on your own. And it's a fair, you know, it's a decently fair fight. You can't take out a mech by yourself because they have, you know, these big weapons you can use, or you can sneak up on them and jump on them and rip out their power supply. And it's a really, really cool idea, and it's a lot of fun. And you know, I always loved trying to sneak up on these mechs when they were fighting people and try to rip out the power core and not get stepped on and get killed. And, you know, Titanfall, just for me, even though the storyline was shit and the gameplay gets a little bit repetitive, it's just so much fun. It's worth it. I really hope they come out with a second one because, you know, honestly, I think they struck gold with this one. But, hey, you know, that's it. Sorry, I rambled a lot on this one. It's just, you know, a lot of these games that I really like, and I'd love to talk more about them, but you know, I don't think anybody wants to see 50 episodes of like 10 minutes per game. But hey, as we get farther on, we will probably make independent episodes for each game, just so we can really get in depth with these top games that we liked and why we liked them as much as we did. Don't forget, me and Nick, we're hosting a fantasy league. Nick's email is below if you want to get in contact with him and be part of a fantasy league. Let us know. Other than that, we will see you on Thursday for Beer of the Week. Take it easy.